Welcome back to Comic Showcase, true believers. Last time, Seafarer tackled the most important question ever asked in comic book history. What are we going to do with 13 X-Men? The answer wasn't exactly in Giant-Size X-Men #1, though. Still, he found the comic to be a great relaunch of a book that struggled during the swinging 60s. The year is now 1987, and it's an age of big hair, cartoons that sold toys, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and where a generation boldly went where no one has gone before. As for Marvel Comics, they were getting ready to make an honest man out of Peter Benjamin Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, as he got ready to marry his longtime love, Mary Jane Watson. P.S. If you're coming in here expecting me to discuss One More Day, One Moment in Time, please check out the videos by The Last Angry Geek and Linkara instead. We're not having any of that mess here. Marvel has had many characters marry over the course of its history. One of the biggest, of course, was the wedding of Reed Richards and Susan Storm of the Fantastic Four. While their marriage wasn't always sunshine and roses, it remains one of the biggest events in Marvel history because it united Marvel's first family. Weddings in comics show great character development and allows characters to grow as real people do. That's what makes them really appealing to me. The events really just show our favorite spandex-wearing heroes that they're just like everyone else. They have their trials and tribulations and their humanity despite their fantastic powers, and show the reader that the world they live in is grounded in some sense of realism. You might be asking yourself why this particular wedding is so important for me to cover. Well, there are a number of reasons, and I'll talk about them in a bit. Right now, let's talk about how they got together in the first place. Ignore that. The story of Peter and Mary Jane had an interesting start. For several issues during the 60s, Aunt May would always try to introduce him to her friend Anna's niece. Her face was always obscured by some random object, and we never knew what she looked like until the last page of Amazing Spider-Man #42, where she said the now famous line, "Face it, Tiger, you've just hit the jackpot." I've been saving that music for a while now. Kinda fits, don't you think? Pete and MJ became fast friends and would become more than friends shortly after the death of his first love, Gwen Stacy, at the hands of the first Green Goblin. Pete was so distraught and thought that MJ, being the party girl that she was, wouldn't really understand how he felt. Closing the door behind her, MJ comforted Pete, and a relationship blossomed. By the time Pete returned to Earth from the Secret Wars, he and MJ were having an on-again, off-again relationship until MJ confronts him on knowing his big secret. It seems that Mary Jane has known Peter was Spider-Man ever since he left to go confront his Uncle Ben's killer way back when. Well, I guess logic dictates that it had to have been Pete. I can't really picture Aunt May in those red and blue long johns. Image deleted. Not long after the big secret was revealed, MJ related one of her own deep secrets as they took a walk in the park. It was revealed that MJ comes from a broken home where her mother had to put aside her dreams in order to make her husband, a professor, happy. MJ, her mother, and her sister Gail ended up going from relative to relative, like her Aunt Anna, and she found that she could cope with the stress of her family life by being a party girl. After her mom died, Gail said that she could take care of MJ. Mary Jane refused as Gail was falling into the same fate as her mother was at the time. She didn't want to end up like either of them and ended up running out on Gail. This is soap opera material here, guys and girls. I hope you brought some popcorn. The couple found that they both had tragedies in their lives, and by Amazing Spider-Man #290, Pete accepted his life as Spider-Man for the upteenth time and decided to ask MJ to marry him. At first, she said no. She changed her tune, however, when she asked Pete to help her with clearing her sister's name. All of this was happening while he was fighting a spider slayer designed by Alistair Smythe. Realizing that Pete would never let anything Spider-Man related hurt her, she says yes. And thus, the scene is set. The players are ready. Let's take a look at Amazing Spider-Man Annual 21 to see how this all got started. Again, ignore that. Since I'm reading from the trade, let's see what Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee has to say about this whole thing. Stan explains that while our heroes have fantastic exploits, they are clothed in the fabric of reality and experience the same trials and triumphs as anyone else. This also includes the emotion of love. There also wasn't any reason for them to not get married. However, they had to plan it well, since they couldn't just have a single Spider-Man running through the newspaper, and vice versa. So, Pete would marry MJ in the newspaper at the same time as well. This all became a media blitz, as the happy couple was even married in New York's Shea Stadium in front of over 50,000 people who really didn't want to see the Mets. The running theme in the last few videos has been iconic covers. This one is no exception. There's a method to my madness in picking comics to have covers with a certain draw for readers, since they have to sell what's happening inside the book. While you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 21's cover shows what readers can expect. Peter Parker and Mary Jane's friends and family all gathered for the wedding. When the comic came out, there was an alternate cover showing the bad guys and friends of Spider-Man all gathered for the ceremony. I don't think we'll be getting that in this book. I assure you that this story will be anything but boring as we leap right into action. Squad cars are screeching down the street as our wall-crawling hero swings overhead. Following the cars, he comes across a crime scene at a clothing store. All because Gentleman's Warehouse hasn't even opened yet. Since the SWAT team's moving in, Pete figures that the police can handle it until sparks of electricity fly out of the store. This definitely looks like a job for Spider-Man, or at least someone well insulated. It turns out that classic Spider-Man villain Electro is in the store violating the no shirt, no shoes, no service rule. Sparky's entourage suits him up and off he goes, proclaiming that the world will once again know the terrible power of Electro. Electro has his fun with the cops when the thugs are stopped by some webbing. Spidey leaps into action and we get some seriously lame puns here. I would say that he's all tied up. Guess I'd better tire you out then. Ooh. It's a good thing I like this story. Spider-Man and Electro continue to battle when the human spark plug here shoots a wall, causing it to fall on a pedestrian and her kid. Thinking fast, Spidey grabs the wall and urges the people to get the two out of there. Electro thinks he has an easy target and Spidey flips the wall, deflecting the electric bolt. Spidey falls and is fed up with Electro and his silly mask. So he grabs a nearby manhole cover and throws it at a nearby fire hydrant, which sprays enough water to short him out. Captain America taught me that trick. Now return to me, manhole cover. Return! Please? The police at this point in Spidey's history still don't like him, as if they ever did, and he takes off to make sure his camera took enough pics to sell to the Daily Bugle. After thwarting a bank robbery, the cops wonder if he's just looking out for stuff to do. As it happens, Pete is just trying to get some extra cash in order to make the wedding of MJ's dreams. Speaking of his better half, she arrives and says that he's been all over the news today and that he must be really bored without MJ around. They talk about moving in stuff and she asks about the red and blue costume and how she always preferred that one to the black one he's been using lately. No, that isn't the symbiote, though there will be another reason why she doesn't like that costume. Spoilers. They talk for a bit and MJ has to go to a modeling shoot via limo, leaving Pete perplexed and hoping that their different financial situations won't be a problem once they're married. Pete then heads to the Daily Bugle to get cash for the pics he took, and as it turns out, the staff is throwing him a spectacular wedding party. Everyone has turned out for this thing. We have Betty Brant, a former girlfriend of Peter's, who has not accepted the death of her husband Ned. We have Robbie Robertson, whose son has been having trouble with the law. Wait, where's Jolly Jonah? Ah, there he is. Looks like the party's over, guys. No, he's actually here to give Pete some sage advice about marriage. Parker, marriage is great.
Sir, your wife is online too. She'd like to know if she can bring caviar or clam dip to Pete's wedding.
Tell her whichever one's cheaper. Jonah does actually threaten to dock everyone's pay if they didn't show up. Guess old Flat Top's back to normal. Pete sees Betty and muses that he could have married her, but Spider-Man got in the way. He hopes that it won't happen again, and he won't let it. 3, 2, 1... Peter returns home and presents the ring to MJ in a very cute, romantic scene. He fills her in on the day he had, and how Jolly Jonah told him how marriage is a big step. MJ asks if he's having second thoughts when she gets a call from a guy named Bruce, who basically wants to take her to the south of France to talk her out of the wedding and sleep with... yeah, there's no hiding it. This Bruce guy wants to sleep with MJ. And no, it isn't Banner. Or Wayne. MJ then runs off to see Willie Smith, the designer of the wedding dress. Fun fact, Willie Smith, the designer of the dress Mary Jane wore, was a real person who sadly died of AIDS-related pneumonia shortly before this book came out. Pete sees yet another limo for MJ and wonders about how different his and MJ's respective paychecks are again. Dude, you're going to marry a supermodel. Do not worry about it. MJ talks about the dress with Willie, and as she leaves, she sees a fancy red car waiting for her. This guy tells her it's from Bruce, and that there's a tape inside that she should listen to. If you're listening to this, you're hooked. I knew I could talk some sense into you. Check the glove box, baby. The tickets are for Paris. We can drive to the villa from there. Pick me up at the hotel on your way to the airport, okay? And, you can keep the Ferrari, sweet cheeks. I've got another one, because I don't play it like that. Oh, Bruce, you'll never change. Still, it would be fun. Give me a break. I'm almost positive that this isn't Bruce Wayne. What a jerk. While visiting his Aunt May, Peter flips through an old photo album and reminisces about how he became Spider-Man, and talks about how tragedy seems to follow him wherever he goes, especially as he comes across pictures of Gwen Stacy. He thinks about how Norman Osborn found out Peter's identity as Spider-Man, and wonders if the same could happen to Mary Jane. Do you ever get tired? After telling Aunt May the good news, and getting more sage advice about doing the right thing for MJ, the pair split as she meets a friend. Pete sees the Ferrari and gets a wee bit jealous. It turns out that our main antagonist / cock blocker, Bruce, is behind the wheel. Oh wow, look at how he's dressed. This guy has pimp written all over him. Pete later spends the night pacing on the walls and wondering about Bruce, the car, and if he should go after. Unless Spidey would have tracked him down and turned that car into a compact. Not our hero. By 1 a.m., Pete finally decides to go looking for MJ when there's a knock at the door. And wouldn't you know it, it's MJ. MJ asks Pete if they could talk at a place where he goes to clear his head. Pete, as Spidey, takes her to the only place he can think of, the top of the Empire State Building. She asks what he thinks about up there, and then notices the bridge where Gwen Stacy died. She apologizes for opening old wounds, and Pete, like a trooper, says it's fine. He takes her home, and once he goes home, he spends the night doing what else but think about Gwen. By 9 a.m., MJ calls and talks about the dress, and we see Pete already getting second thoughts after spending all night thinking about Gwen. The doubts continue at the registry and seem to fade when Pete visits his former bully-turned-friend, Flash Thompson. Flash says that he could round up some people for an impromptu bachelor party and to leave everything to him. Oh, that Flash is a swell guy. Wasn't that long ago you were fanboying over Spider-Man and making Peter's life a living hell, now wasn't it? The doubts continue to eat at Peter, and at a fancy restaurant he decides that he has to break Mary Jane's heart. Interrupting him, MJ shows a picture of the dress. Not with her in it, of course. That's bad luck to see a bride in a gown before the wedding. Of course, he likes it, and MJ apologizes for interrupting him, and asks what he was going to say. He talks about the bachelor party. Looks like our hero changed his mind again. At the bachelor party, consisting of Flash and Harry Osborn, he tells the guy that he's been having doubts about MJ. Flash Thompson, having the heart of a poet here, says that if you have a chance at happiness, to take it. Flash, you are quite the character, aren't you? Hey, what's Mary Jane up to? She seems to be at a party of her own, with snobby people. Really, MJ? This is your world. Your natural habitat. How could you possibly give it up for, dirty dishes and rugrats? Arrogant, rich, pretty boy douchebag who thinks he can wear a frilly cravat and dance with Mary Jane like that? What the hell is wrong with you, boy? As the party winds down, MJ gets a telegram from, you guessed it, Bruce, who tells her that they can still leave via the Concorde. Pete snaps into her party girl defense mode, and the party continues to go into the night. Stalker! Seriously, the rich and famous seem to have no problem being jerks. Well, I guess if they can afford it. Elsewhere, Pete has a dream where all his superhero buddies and villains have all gathered. Uncle Ben is there congratulating Pete, and in walks in Gwen with a wedding ring. Gwen says her goodbye to Pete and vanishes, before he realizes that all the heroes have been subdued by the villains. Okay, I call foul right here. There is no way Thor and the Thing can be held by the kingpin of all people. Spidey tells MJ to run and is suddenly overwhelmed by the villains. MJ asks if Pete would never let anything happen to her as the mob closes in. As they close in on her, he wakes up with a start. By 3 a.m., MJ leaves her party, only to be met by jerk-faced McCockblock. Bruce. Yeah, him. They go to have a little talk while Pete sits on a bridge where Gwen Stacy died. He says that he has to make a decision, and he has to let go of the past. He wants her help as he struggles to find out what the right thing to do is. The next day, everyone is gathered outside City Hall for the wedding. Willie's being congratulated on the gown, and Jolly Jonah is pleased with himself for some reason. MJ arrives first and wonders where Peter is. Pete does show up and... Go away! As I was saying, Pete shows up and the wedding proceeds as scheduled, and we get this awesome splash page. Breathe it in, kids. This is pure magic. Yeah, I'm a romantic. What of it? At the reception, Jonah leaves everyone in a toast while Pete looks upset that they can't afford a decent honeymoon. MJ smirks and says that she has 2 tickets her friend Bruce lent her in a villa to south of France. It seems he won't be needing it anymore. Oh crap, that's Mafia talk, but he's in the East River along with Jimmy Hoffa. 2 weeks later, and the happy couple remark at how wonderful their adventure in France was. Pete wonders about how they can go back to normal after being in the villa, and MJ replies, "That's easy, Tiger. We're doing exactly what we'd be doing anyplace. Living happily ever after." Wow, who knew ever after meant just 20 years? Let's talk about the impact this book has had. This comic is fantastic. We have a bit of action at the start that hooks the readers in, just to tell us that this isn't just a romance book. It's a book concerning Spider-Man. Stuff is gonna happen. Even after the fight with Electro, the action doesn't die down. You could call Bruce a secondary antagonist, as he constantly wants MJ. Of course, that whole issue and others led to Pete having second thoughts. It's very human of them to have these emotions, and eventually they talk things out. I am not going to talk about it. Go away. Go eat peanuts or something, will ya? As for the impact, the whole wedding, while it was a media event, still hit home the fact that our Peter Parker was, and still is, a character who was supposed to be the everyman. Marvel's flagship character was getting married, and it was news a good decade before Lois Lane and Clark Kent got married. Did it pave the way for those two to get married? Who can really say? The stories after Pete and MJ got married proved to be really well done, in my opinion, as it gave Pete someone to talk to about his life as Spider-Man. He needed a partner, and someone who understood what he has gone through. With Mary Jane, we got that, as no other female lead came close to understanding Pete as she did, not even his doting Aunt May. It shouldn't even matter that MJ is a supermodel and an actress. She is the character who has her own dreams. Why shouldn't they be fulfilled as well? The story unites 2 characters who, like I said, have had real tragedy in their lives. MJ's past has had a few bumps in it, and her smile covers up her insecurities. We all know what Pete went through, but we never really knew her past. She was a mystery, and we finally found out just what makes MJ tick through the course of the arc. I personally feel that the wedding strengthened both characters. It united the two, who in the beginning called out to each other when Gwen Stacy died, as she was also MJ's friend. Their common ground united the couple in a more intimate way than any of the other couples in the Marvel Universe. Of course, it wasn't just Gwen's death that allowed this to happen. Similar hardships tend to bring people closer together. Spidey to me has always been a character who grows with the audience. Pete went to high school. He went to college. Why shouldn't he do what many other adults do? His life has never really been about just being Spider-Man. Peter Parker fits into the puzzle too, and writers would do well to remember where their character came from in order to understand them. It also helps that MJ keeps Peter grounded in reality. Despite their struggles, the two were one of the most iconic couples in comic book history. They have their pitfalls, they have their celebrations. In the end, Peter Benjamin Parker and Mary Jane Watson are two characters who quite literally were made for each other because of their dynamics and how well they work off of each other. The wedding was a logical conclusion of them bonding and growing, and here you can tell that they both love each other very deeply. That is why I give this comic a lot of praise. Nothing left to say other than, enough said. The wedding of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson has always been one of my favorite stories to read. If you can, go check out the trade paperback at any fine bookstore. You won't be disappointed. I'm Seafarer, thanks for watching Comic Showcase. I'll see you in the funny papers, and next time, justice, like lightning, strikes when you least expect it.